Members will start in about 2 minutes, giving other members opportunity to show up. Uh, Good morning, everyone. It's 10:03, and I call this Special Committee for Federal Assistance and Disaster-Related Funding to order. Let the record show that quorum has been established, and I would introduce the members. First, to my left, um, Rep. Lee Pan, our Vice Chair, Rep. JP Sablan. To my right, Rep. Tina Sablan, and to her right, Rep. LJ Castro. My minority leader has requested to attend, and so I will allow other non-members to participate. And should there be time, uh, we will allow them to ask questions. But I remind the members that all questions will be pertaining only to Homeland Security. And with that, just for introduction, today we have a lot to cover in a short period of time. So a quick history on how the committee came to be. And it all started last year when this body gave the administration 100% reprogram authority. We allowed the administration to receive loan from MPLT to cover extraordinary expenses related to Super Typhoon U2 and so forth. SNIOD, I believe, handed over close to well over $9 million to cover government obligation from Super Typhoon U2. And now we are in the process of participating in community disaster loan and up to $93 million. So part of the agreement was to form this special committee to monitor, ask questions, and in the end report to the people of the CNMI. Early this year, we receive additional funds from the federal government, 36 million under COVID-19 pandemic, along with FEMA, and I believe over 54 million was already obligated within the general fund. And so we are here now to ask some questions and air out our concerns. So the rules are as follow. We would proceed with 2 rounds of 5 minutes per member, and for non-members, I may allow up to 3 minutes, and that's because of the time. Sarge, please administer the oath to Mr. Guerrero and her assistant. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Guerrero. And for the record, you are under oath, so please answer as truthfully as you can. And for the record, would you please state your name and position?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Gerald Deleon Guerrero. I am the Special Assistant for Homeland Security and Emergency Management Office.
Thank you, Mr. Guerrero. How long have you held this position?
I was appointed to this position in 2014.
So let the record show from 2014 you were head of Homeland Security. Would you describe for the record the mission of Homeland Security Management and how it plays into the pandemic or COVID we are in right now?
Okay. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, for the question. I'm going to base myself from the Public Law 18 that's 04, where the CNMI Homeland Security and Emergency Management Office managed and implemented the principal authority under this Act to authorize HSEM as the primary state responsible for response coordination of significant emergencies and major disasters within the CNMI.
Thank you, Mr. Guerrero. So in your chain of command, who do you answer to? Is there a person above you, or is there a list of other, I guess, other assigned personnel under your or above your position?
Yes, I do answer to the Chief of Staff, the Lieutenant Governor, and the Governor.
So just those two?
Correct.
Okay. And what is your position in relations to Mr. Patrick Guerrero and or Ms. Virginia Villagomez? Is it a same level or?
The GAR is appointed by the Governor. In terms of level, I believe we're the same. They report to the Governor as well.
Okay. So they don't instruct you on how to get things done or requests for items or requests for contracts?
No.
No. Okay.
But they help me.
They're in that position to help.
Correct.
Okay. Coordination and so forth.
Yes.
Okay. And what is your position in relation to Mr. Warren Villagomez? Is it the same as the GAR uh, and Miss Virginia, um, and the the alternate GAR? I believe there's also an alternate GAR, right? So
It's,
it's the same.
it's the same. The chairman of the task force was also appointed by the governor.
Okay. Uh, and with that, I have other questions. I'll open it up to the members, and I would proceed first with Rep. Castro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Guerrero, Ms. Hokuk, welcome to the chamber. I'd like to inquire a little bit in regards to the procurement processes that you've implemented in storms, the disasters past, and as well as with the current situation we're in now. Just for general purposes, sir, for the record, I noticed on some of the on some of the contracts that we reviewed, the abbreviation ICS is present over there. I'd like to ask for the record, could you state what the ICS is and what specifically is its purpose in all of this?
Thank you, Rep. Castro. ICS stands for Incident Command System. It is a system that was developed by FEMA right after the 2000, I'm not sure, but right after the tower attacks in the mainland, FEMA came out with this system that we follow here in the cinema.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Now, does your agency follow the standards implemented within that system?
Yes.
Okay. So, in regards to your certification, in regards to those FEMA standards, HSEM is certified, is ICS certified.
Yes, all the staff at the office must go online and take those courses.
Okay, thank you, sir. Now I'd like to ask in regards to the processes for how goods, services, and supplies are procured within the ICS protocol. I assume that there's a process in regards to how you procure whatever you need in regards to mitigating disasters and whatnot. Could you please describe that, like procurement from request to payment, everything down that line?
Okay, thank you again, Rep. Castro. The process is if a request comes in, and according to the ICS system, it goes through the operations section. And by the way, there's a fourth section within the ICS. It's the ops section, logistics sections, planning section, and finance section. So initially, a request will come in to the ops section. The ops section will validate that request, and if we do have those requests at hand, we try and use what we got. If the ops section chief thinks that we need to go outside, that request will be approved by the section chief and then forwarded up to the logistics section.
Like to ask is in regards to the current situation we are with this pandemic, is the request of quotes a normal part of this process? Is either whether it's specifically indicated via the standards through the FEMA ICS system, or if it's a personal protocol within your own department, do you still maintain some certain qualms of some certain areas where you try to look at fairness when procuring products and services, like quotes and whatnot?
Okay, you know, Congressman Castro, this response was very different from the usual typhoons. I know there were there were the unknowns out there. So whatever request that comes in, it's either PPEs or medical equipment. We try and seek guidance from the task force and also by the by Dr. Tudela at CHCC for those requests that are coming in.
Okay, but I mean, let me see if I can try to uh, clarify that question. But in regards to that counsel that you get via the task force or through CHCC, when it comes time to procuring those products, I know, uh, is there a bid out, or is it just pretty much if the need is necessitated, go with that vendor? That's what I'm trying to try to inquire.
All right, so yes, we try to seek local vendors, and yes, we did went out and seek from them, and majority of them, if not, it's either they're low in stock, they can't guarantee timing of arrival, but yes, we do. We start from local vendors before we go outside CNMI.
Okay, that because I know there's a lot of questions in regards to how certain vendors were procured. I know that you know, from my experience working in the government, a lot of times when it comes to procuring those supplies, they usually try their best to look on island. And you know, I know that some of the vendors, the contracts that we've been reviewing, have dealt with off-island, off-island vendors who, you know, uh, don't, some don't do business in the CNMI, some here and there. So, I mean, if that's the process that you follow, okay. And aside from all of that, how uh, how how visible is the role of the AG in the process of your procurement? I used to be a member of RAC, so I know that there's usually an AG, deputy AG that's there. So what specifically is that individual's role in this whole process when you're trying to procure your services or your goods?
Rep Castro. Yes, I did. I reached out to the AG, and I apologize I didn't have the chance to share this document that was prepared by the AG, Assistant AG, I'm sorry. It's the streamlined emergency procurement process. It's all stated down here. If you guys would like a copy, I can get you guys a copy. Thank you.
Could, if you could please provide a copy for that, just for our to kind of ease those questions and to clarify what you stated, that would be great, greatly appreciated. Um, okay, so that's how the AG, so that's where the AG fits in all of this. Um, in regards to the contracts that he's asked, or the contracts he's had to review, um, between those that have been approved, those have been rejected, um, what's the number between the accepted and rejected contracts that you've given to him to sign or to review?
I'll say 20% rate of rejection.
Okay, so
And rejection is pretty much requires further justification for a contract.
okay, and in regards to that, um, your agency is diligent in providing that justification.
Yes. And also if a contract requires further justification and we can't pretty much justify it well, I go out and seek task force and public health assistance.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Mr. Chairman, I do have more questions for both Mr. Guerrero and Ms. Hopcook. However, I know that there's other questions the members want to ask the parties at hand. So for this point, now you.
Thank you, Rep. Castro. Chair recognizes Rep. Lipon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Director and your staff. Director, just for clarification on this meals, it started off at $8 and then it all went up to $10 within a short span. That's one. And the other one is some of these PRs has different vendors on the meals for different frontliners. I'm kind of concerned that if we're trying to control this PRs, why are we being selective of what we eat? I just don't understand that from one outlet to the other, we have different frontliners wanting to eat different kind of food. Is this based on their diet, or I just wanted to find out some clarity on this.
Thank you, Rep. Bond. Okay, so first of all, we got the meals, or we had decided for the cost of a meal to not be over more than $10, and also the way we had done this is
You mentioned not more than $10?
Correct.
There's one particular PR here that's $12, and it's a lunch meal. I'm kind of concerned that you're alluding that you have a minimum and a max, and they went beyond this. Can you share why?
Hang on. Congressman Lee, can I retract on that? On my response to your question, but in terms of different vendors, we had vendors, or we contacted vendors, and if not all, a lot of vendors are hesitant to conduct business with us. And due to the pandemic too as well, a lot of restaurants were closed. So we managed to, I guess, work with vendors that would allow us to pay them at a later date.
So we're procuring from a vendor, knowing that the vendor is in need of funds to address their overhead, and how can they be able to continue providing the meals. It doesn't make sense. On a few of your purchase requisition for meals, they're considered as lot, no unit cost, but lot. No indication as to how many lot. There's so many discrepancy with this PR that it's not consistent with the rest. I'm kind of worried that for the amount of funds being exhausted for meal, which is essential for the frontliners. I'm not questioning that. I'm just questioning the procurement process. Nothing against the vendor, nothing against anyone, but I wanted to substantiate how is this PR being routed, approved, and there's so many discrepancy on the PRs. I'm worried that when the time to start paying these vendors, as you alluded, that they're not going to get their money timely.
Thank you again, Rep. Pan. To clarify the the question about the PRs on, it's really, if invoice is combined in a day, it's we put it as we indicate it as a lot on the PR.
So let me ask a question. In one particular vendor, have you cleared their account, or they're still pending payables that have yet to be submitted?
There is still pending payments for vendors.
And it's still under review? Is that through your office or through GAR?
That's through my office.
Okay. The other concern I have that you're signing off is on the PPE. An N95 mask from a vendor out of Tamuning, Guam. It does not say how much, what's the quantity in it, but $78 for 54 each. It doesn't add up with other N45 masks that was within the same vendor again at $764. The other thing that I noticed is for a glove or disposable facial mask, they're selling at $2.99 per piece, and then others are purchased in lot. It's kind of troubling that from the same vendor, different pricing. It don't make sense that we should be billed for something with the same disposable mask at different pricing. Can you share how is this?
Thank you again, Rep. Pan. In the very beginning of this response, the PPEs were a very hot commodity. We were challenged with different states and territories on how to acquire these commodities. At the time, I'm thinking to save lives, most especially those folks out at the front line. I just could not sacrifice lives out there. I know there's some discrepancies on pricing, but I told myself that I ain't gonna sacrifice any lives, and most especially those folks out at the front line.
Definitely, I agree with that statement that you made, but you know, when you're buying from the same vendor, I don't understand that the vendor tends to fluctuate their pricing. I do the urgency of saving life, but why is the vendor, you know, not allowing the Cinemite to buy at a certain pricing? It seems like we've committed to this vendor, or Homeland Security is committed to this vendor. For the amount of purchases that we made, there should be some, they call it discount, because it seems like you were buying it in individual unit and then you turn around and you buy it in bulk, in lot, but the price is still the same. You know, if you buy it by 1,000, I understand. If you buy it by 150, but when you're buying by bulk, the price remains the same. If the product is still the same, the price should go down because you're buying in huge quantity. I wonder if this vendor is out to make money out of the sinamay. And they don't care about who they sell, but, you know, as you alluded, it's hot commodity. Everybody wants it, but in fairness, if we had it, are we going to do the same thing to our neighboring island in Guam, accelerate the price? I think that this vendor that you guys are buying is not the appropriate vendor at all. So can you give me some insight as to why the pricing is still the same in bulk versus small quantity?
Thanks again, Rep. Juan. On the PPEs, there's different types of let's say mask. So price varies. Again, a lot of this purchases went through the process with the blessing of the AAG and the AG himself. So that's all I have for now.
So the AG signed off on it, you're saying?
Correct.
So did the AG thoroughly review it and is content with the pricing? I don't understand. You know, if I was an attorney and I saw the pricing disparity, I would be questionable and go back to GAR and say, listen, go back and ask them, you know, we're buying by volumes. What kind of break can they give us? I mean, it's a lot of these vendors know that it's not local funding, but federal funding. It seems like when they find out that it's a federal money, they'll escalate price because the Fed had a lot of money to buy. You know, expenditure is not questionable at time. So is the AG, as you alluded, agreeing to that?
I'm not sure, Rep. Juan, but the contract was signed by the AG.
I'll hear for this time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Rep. Lee. Chair recognizes Rep. Sablan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, Mr. Guerrero and Ms. Hokuk. Just a few questions on the the purchase requisition that was sent to this body. For Canoa Resort, the Asia Pacific Hotels, you guys executed a purchase requisition on March 25th at the tune of 14 million. And then later on, the next following month at April 2nd, another purchase requisition on the tune of 11 million. Can you expound on why is this requisition of the acquisition of Canoa were separate, were two separate purchase requisition?
Thank you, Rep. Sablan. Initially, it was Canoa that was designated quarantine site. Later after that, things changes, and we wanted to separate a PUI and a regular passenger arriving from off island. And if I may, Rep. Sablan, maybe we could refer those questions to our GAR. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And the reason why I asked is that the requesting office was actually your office for this acquisition, and perhaps the GAR knows more in detail. And also, my other questions, I know that you have mentioned already from several of our members here on the outside source. So you have explained that initially you guys checked the vendors here, and part of the criteria that you guys follow was, do they have the capabilities of bringing it here, and how long of a time? Those are the criteria. Is that correct?
That's correct, Congressman.
So out of all the vendors here on island, they didn't have that capability, and that's the reason why you guys went outside. And I believe Medfarm is stationed in Guam, and they were able to bring those important resources so that we can save lives here on the Commonwealth.
That's correct, Rep. Sablan. Before the governor declared a state of emergency disaster, I've been reached out by both public health and CHCC to try and help them out with PPEs. This is early, I'll say late January, early February, and I did, or the office did, went out to all the known PPE vendors on island, and during that time too as well, we could not, or they could not get us the orders that we need, and the time that we were asking to how soon can they get us those stuff. Thank you.
Thank you for that response, Mr. Guerrero. My other question was the purchase requisition for the vendor Island Image and Motion for video production service. What is this all about? What was the purpose for this video production services?
This is to capture all the COVID responses. Thank you.
Within all the operations?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield for now and allow the other members to ask questions.
Thank you, Rep. Sablan. Rep. Sablan. Ms. Sablan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Deleon Guerrero, and good morning, Ms. Hokuk. Thank you for being here. My first question is to ask if you could finish walking us through the ICS procurement protocol. You mentioned it begins with a request from the agency, goes on to operations to validate, and then on to logistics if items need to be procured. What happens after logistics?
Okay, after the logistics chief signs off on this request, the request goes up to finance section.
Homeland Security Finance section?
Correct.
So, Ms. Hokuk. And then what?
And then a contract will be executed.
So from Homeland Security Finance, a contract is executed, and then who signs? Who's next?
I sign, the GAR signs, and then the AG.
The AG signs, and then after the AG signs, what happens to the contract?
It goes to the vendor to sign it.
It goes to the vendor, and then after the vendor, does it go to the CNMI Department of Finance?
Procurement, correct.
Procurement, okay. And then the goods, the supplies, the services are procured?
Yes.
That is the normal process?
Yes.
And getting 3 quotes is a normal part of the ICS process in the COVID-19 response, correct? According to the streamlined procedures that the Attorney General has outlined for the department or for the office.
All right, so there's a there's a process before we do actually do a contract for any vendor.
Sorry, Mr. Deleon Guerrero, my time is limited. So the question is getting 3 quotes a normal part of this ICS protocol?
Yes, it is, ma'am.
Yes, it is. And that happens at the logistics stage, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So next, did any of these contracts go through this normal ICS procurement process? Medfarm?
Yes.
Yes, it did.
Yes.
International Royal?
Yes.
Helios,
Yes.
Kanoa,
Yes.
PIC, and Inter-Pacific Resort.
Yes.
So you're saying that there is a record of 3 quotes being obtained, and this process being followed from beginning to end. Request is made, operations reviews, logistics signs off, Homeland Security signs off, the finance office signs off, and then it goes through you, the public assistance office, the AG, and finance.
For the vendors that you mentioned, those are sole source.
Right. So to go back to the question, did these follow the standard ICS process?
Rep. Sublime, I have my streamlined procurement process here, and there's 3 processes that we can work with. One is emergency competition, second one is competitive pricing, the last one is sole source.
So the contracts that I just mentioned, those followed the sole source process,
Yes.
not the standard ICS procurement that would require all those different steps.
It does. It goes through all the process within the EOC. But the contract, it was sole source.
And why were these particular contracts sole sourced?
Because of the need, and also when the governor declared the state of emergency, we were looking at the quickest way, the fastest way on how we can get all this stuff in place. Time was not in our favor. We need it now, and we decided to go with that.
But you did not request 3 quotes for PPEs when you awarded the contract to MedFarm, correct? Or 3 quotes for International Royal, or 3 quotes for Helios, or 3 quotes for Kanoa or PIC. Is that correct? Because it was just sole sourced, as you said.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other contracts in the listing that has been provided to this committee that were sole sourced in that way and quotes were not solicited beforehand?
Can you repeat again, please?
Are there any other contracts that were sole sourced in that way? Without going through this request for quotes, going through all the different steps before the contract could get sent to procurement? Any other contracts that were sole sourced?
I believe this is the only ones.
Those were the only ones?
Yes.
Okay. So for those contracts that were sole sourced, was there any negotiation involved with the contractors?
Rep. Sablan, can I refer that to the GAR? He negotiated the Kanoa and PIC as well.
So you had no role in the negotiation?
I was not in the negotiation table.
And what about for the contracts with MedFarm and International Royal?
Yes.
So was there negotiation? You were involved?
Yes, the EOC, I was heavily involved in the contracts.
And could you describe the negotiation that happened with those contracts that you were involved in?
Well, for example, MedFarm, we went out to them, request for a proposal that can meet our demand and timing. How soon can they deliver?
Okay. And how did you ensure that the best prices that they offered, or that the prices that they offered were the best prices for the CNMI?
Rep. Sablan, again, at the time, I was not really thinking about how we're going to get a good pricing on these commodities. I was thinking about trying to get this on island and protect our community and first responders.
So you did not negotiate prices then?
We did ask for a bulk delivery and a time frame to deliver the request.
And could you explain how these companies, MedFarm and International Royal in particular, how was that connection made? Did you reach out to these companies? Did they reach out to us? How did that happen?
I reached out to the task force for any other outside vendor that I can get those supplies.
And who are the principals for MedFarm?
Rep Sablon, I have no idea.
Who did you meet with?
The rep of MedFarm,
Which is who?
Miss Joanne, I'm not sure of her last name,
Joanne Hernandez?
probably, but I'm not sure.
Any other local agents or representatives that you met with?
From MedFarm,
Yes.
there's another guy, I'm not sure what's his name, but he's a tech for MedFarm.
So they were part of the negotiations of these contracts, the contracts that they received with you. Was anybody else involved in the negotiation
Miss Joanne herself, and
besides Ms. Joanne and besides the tech for MedFarm?
yes, we have the task force chair and the GAR.
And did anybody ever call your office to follow up on these contracts with MedFarm?
I'm not sure on that. I haven't gotten a call directly.
And what about for International Royal? Who are the principals for International Royal that you met with?
I have no idea.
You were negotiating the contract though, right?
I was not involved in that contract. Can I refer that to the task force and the GAR?
Who at the task force was involved in that contract?
The chairman and the GAR.
The chairman, Warren Villagomez.
Correct.
Okay. So you did not deal with any local agents or representatives or any representatives for International Royal but you signed off on the contract?
Yes.
Okay.
The contract went through the EOC process, the streamlined emergency procurement process. So yes, I did sign on the contract.
Now, doesn't International Royal provide uniforms and things of that nature on Guam?
During the time, just recently that I knew that they were doing school uniforms, but I don't know Royal Bics.
What do they have to do with PPEs then? Why did we reach out to them for a multi-million-dollar contract for PPEs?
They were reached out by the task force, and they were able to provide what we were requesting.
But why them? That's what I'm asking. Why a company that specializes in uniforms to go get PPEs?
Can I refer that to the task force? Like I said, I don't know Royal Bics. I'm not sure what kind of business they do, but they were able to get us the supply that we were requesting.
So, just to clarify, to your knowledge, who reached out to International Royal and who reached out to MedFarm?
I would say it would be the task force and the GAR.
The task force and the GAR, but who on the task force specifically?
Not sure.
Okay. Were you directed or requested to sign off on these contract awards to International Royal or MedFarm?
No.
Okay. My next questions have to do with the follow-up questions on the meals, the contracts for meals. So in general, do the contracts for meals go through the normal ICS procurement process?
Yes.
Yes. And are these contracts generally rotated among vendors?
Yes.
And how long is the rotation for one vendor on average?
The most about 2 weeks.
Most are about 2-week contracts? Okay. Did the contracts for OMG Legends Barbecue go through the normal ICS process?
Yes, ma'am.
And is there a reason why OMG, if what you're saying is accurate, that most of the meals contracts are about 2 weeks, is there a reason why OMG has had continuous contracts for meals from the very beginning of COVID in March to the present?
Well, actually, the service that they were providing meets, I guess, the requirements. So we don't have any system in place that will, hinder a vendor to, or for us to terminate services.
And what do you mean by that, sir? They meet the requirements. Did nobody else meet the requirement?
No, it does, but what I'm saying is we haven't gotten any complaints about the service that they do.
I see. Did anyone ask, request, or direct you to award a contract to OMG?
No.
You're listed as the requester for the first purchase requisitions that ultimately went to OMG and Legends Barbecue. Are you aware of who the principals are for OMG and Legends Barbecue?
Yes, I do.
And who are they?
Mr. Ken Callen.
And who else?
I only know Mr. Callen. I'm not sure who else is in that company.
To your knowledge, there are no other principals
Correct.
involved with OMG and Legends Barbecue?
Yes.
Sir, respectfully, I'd like to remind you that you are under oath.
Rep Sablon, to my knowledge, OMG is owned by Mr. Ken Callen. I have no knowledge about who else is involved with that company.
Do you know who picks up the checks for OMG?
That will be Mr. Callen himself or Jerry
And who is Jerry?
De La Cruz.
And what is her role in OMG Legends Barbecue?
I have no idea, ma'am.
But she signed off on a contract that you also signed off on. Is that correct?
I will believe he's a rep for Ken Callen.
She's a representative for Kent Callen, who is able to sign off on contracts.
I believe so.
And are you aware that the governor's chief of staff and the alternate GAR, Angel Demapan, has also been known to pick up checks for OMG?
I am aware, and I believe he came up one time to pick up a check.
Our understanding is that he has come up multiple times to pick up checks. Do you know what his role is with OMG Legends Barbecue?
No, ma'am.
If you are not aware, do you think that there may be a problem with your accountability system if people are able to pick up checks without having to establish their relationship with the vendor?
I believe Mr. Callen authorizes these individuals to be picking up checks on his behalf.
And why do you believe that?
I've never gotten a call that it was an authorized pickup.
Is there anything in writing that indicates that Angel Demapan and Jerry De La Cruz are authorized to pick up checks for Mr. Callen?
Verbally.
Verbal authorization. So what does that mean? He called you to tell you?
a staff member.
Rep Sablan, you're
I'm wrapping
waving.
up.
Okay.
I'm sorry, would you clarify that? A staff member called who, or Mr. Callen called a staff member?
I believe Mr. Callen will call up the EOC.
Mr. Callen calls the EOC and says Angel Demapon and Jerry De La Cruz are authorized to sign on, to pick up my checks.
Yes.
And who does he call at the EOC?
That will be the finance section or the log section.
Finance or log? I yield for now, Mr. Chairman, but I do have other questions regarding these meal contracts. Thank you.
Noted. Okay, so we did the first round on the non-members. Is there anyone? Okay, Rep Probst first, and then Rep Itibus. He raised it first.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, members, for allowing me to ask a few questions as a non-member. And thank you, Mr. Deleon Guerrero and Ms. Hoko, for being here today. We appreciate your time. I do have a few questions with regard to the PPEs and the CHCC equipment. So, as a signatory, I'm sure you're aware of these huge contracts that have been discussed earlier, and I appreciate you doing your best to secure this equipment because it's especially needed at a very critical time. We understand that. But some of the ways that they were purchased, let me just go through a few numbers. Let's just go through the N95 masks. We do understand it was difficult to secure these N95 masks, but we had 500,000 masks, 400,000 gowns, gloves, and so forth that were all, have everything that has come in. So we have 500,000 N95 masks. Has this been accounted for when it arrives? Is there somebody that actually accounts for the 500,000 N95 masks?
Thank you, Rep. Probst. Yes, we do. We do have a facility that we store those PPEs, and it's all been inventoried.
Okay, thank you. And because when we heard about the number of 500,000 masks, N95 masks, we understand the importance of using it. So with having 500,000 masks, and we have a population of the Commonwealth is, what, 54,000, 55,000 perhaps? Now, apparently not everybody is going to be using these N95 masks. Who would be using these N95 masks?
Our first responders.
First responders.
And CHCC as well.
Thank you. I know it's difficult, but roughly what would you say this comes down to? 100 personnel? 200?
I'll say 400 or 500.
400 or 500, okay. So 500,000 is an appropriate number for 500 personnel. Is that correct?
Also, we need to look at how long would this pandemic last?
Sure.
It's an unknown right now.
Right.
So having a large amount
Let's go down.
is, I'll say, better than going back and again going through the challenge of getting the supplies in.
So these N95 masks, because they're so critical, and obviously we want to protect our front line, how many of them are actually using N95 masks on a daily basis?
I can't tell you an actual number, but yes, it's being utilized down at the quarantine sites and also during the community-based testing.
Thank you. We wanted to verify that. Okay, and I appreciate that. Another note, it's been reported that there are 2 containers filled with PPEs that have been sitting at the dock for over 1 month now. Are these PPEs intended for the CNMI government? And who has shipped them in, and at what cost?
Those are orders from BICS International. I am aware that they're sitting at the dock pending clearances.
Thank you. And some of the purchases, of course, included ventilators. Are you aware of how many ventilators were purchased?
I would say 40 plus. I don't have an accurate number, but if it's not 40, it's around that area, 40, 45.
40, 45. Okay. I actually have here for the ventilators, there's 2 orders, one 36 ventilators and another one for 50, both from MedFarm. So there are 86 ventilators. Are these FDA approved?
Can I refer that to maybe the chairman of the task force? I'm not sure, but I would like to request that I refer that question to.
I do happen to know the answer to that, and I believe the answer is it is not. And we hope that we will have answers to that. Do you know how many dialysis units were purchased?
Sorry, Rep. Probst, I don't have that number in mind right now.
All right. Are you aware that the dialysis units do not match the brand that that CHC uses? Did anyone during these purchases consult with CHC on what CHC would need for these dialysis units?
Yes, we consulted with the task force, CHCC, and Dr. Tudela.
Okay, so they gave the green light to go ahead and get these dialysis units that did not match the brand that the hospital uses. Is that correct? Dr. Tudela said
I
that
believe
let us get these units even though they do not match the brand that the hospital uses. Okay, all right. And I wanted to verify that. So what clearances are still pending? What are we still waiting for in terms of PPEs and other equipment and supplies?
Referring to the containers, though?
Yes, like what's in there? What do we have?
I think it's their agent. I'm not sure whether it's BIF or AMBIF or some other agent, and also the Division of Customs.
Okay, and I wanted to talk a little bit briefly. I'll wrap this up as a non-member. I don't have too much time on this, but so with the company Royal Bix from Guam, and I look at this, and it says fashion, uniforms, tailors, shoes. So somehow they found out about these supplies that were needed when I spoke to some local distributors and vendors that were not aware of it. And going through this, I met with a distributor who was very concerned about the price quote and what was listed. Because in this price quote from legal counsel, would you be able to pull out Royal Bix and put it up? Yeah, for the contract for $2.5 million. If you could put that up. I apologize. I think we need new printers. I don't know if we can afford it, though. Do we have COVID-19 funds for that? Can we use it? No? Okay. So if you're looking at this Royal Bix contract, some of the things that this vendor was concerned about was there are items listed here. For example, hand sanitizers. There was 20,000 hand sanitizers at 70% ethanol solution. 20,000 were ordered. But what's interesting is what size? Mr. Guerrero, could you tell me what size this was? Because it was at, what was it, at 11.95? Are you aware of what size this was?
I'm not sure, but they come in large sizes. Some of them are in a gallon.
Okay, because even if this were to be looked at to try to get 3 quotes, there's no sizes listed here or anything. And then there's other interesting things that are put to this contract. Toilet paper. So out of all the suppliers in the CNMI, no one could provide toilet paper? Not Joe 10, Triple J, or many of the various contractors that we could have perhaps given business to a local vendor that's actually in the CNMI, not in Guam. Could you answer that about the toilet paper?
Congressman Props, I believe the intention here was to purchase in a bulk.
Sure. But aren't there distributors that are able to at least get toilet paper here on island?
Like I said, again, Congressman, I'm not sure, but the intention behind these orders was to get it in bulk sizes.
I understand that, sir. But, so by saying that, no local company could order toilet paper in bulk sizes. So if you had gone to any local vendor, nobody could order a quantity of 10,000 rolls of toilet paper.
I'm not sure, but we had the chance to go out and procure all this stuff in a bulk, and we included, because at the time in the mainland there was some issues about, of course, toilet paper. So
Sure.
we kind of look at how we're gonna prepare ourselves.
Yet we were still able to have toilet paper in the stores, and when I talked to vendors here, they said they could have easily ordered bulk orders of toilet paper. So the answer is, local vendors could have provided at least toilet paper. Is that correct?
It could be, but I was just worried about the issue about not having toilet paper.
There's also, I'll wrap this up, I'm almost done. Also 1,000 first aid kits. There are many companies on island that could have easily provided a very simple first aid kit, but we don't even know what this first aid kit contains. Why did Royal Bix, who issues fashion, uniforms, tailors, and shoes, have to give out first aid kits when we have many local companies, local vendors, completely and fully ready and available, and to put in these orders that could have easily done more than 1,000 first aid kits? Probably for, in fact, even for better prices.
Rep Ropes, like I said earlier, the orders were looking at a bulk, and at the time, again, we needed it, and I went ahead and
Thank you, Mr. Deleon Guerrero. We need a lot of things, but at the same time, during a pandemic or during YouTube or whatever comes our way, don't you think it would be reasonable to look first to local vendors before going to companies in Guam, some of which are not even registered to do business here in the CNMI?
yes, it is, Congressman Props. That's the practice. We seek local vendors before going outside the CNMI.
I want to state this for the record, that moving forward, that local companies that are barely surviving be afforded the opportunity to bid for toilet paper or Kleenex or first aid kits or things that are easily available here in the Commonwealth before we give business outside our Commonwealth. Because it is our local businesses, sir, that pay taxes, that afford all of us our jobs. Thank you. I yield for now.
Thank you, Rep. Probst. Rep. Itibus, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. Welcome, Mr. Guerrero, Ms. O'Cook. I just wanted to ask, you mentioned about vendors that haven't been paid yet. How many of these local vendors that are not being paid yet? Say like on the food vendors.
Congressman Itibus, we still have a few that hasn't been paid 100%.
So the question I'm trying to find out is how many of those vendors do you have more than 20, 50, 100 vendors?
Just for meals alone,
Yes,
less.
less. So those, because you mentioned that they haven't been paid yet, how long does it really take to process their payments?
Okay, so the process, usually it would take about 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, because there are some vendors that reach out to me and saying as if like there's a preference on the process of payment here. There are some vendors that can easily get their payment within a week, while them it's already more than like 2 months they never get payment.
Rep. Itibus, the way I leave it up to the process. I don't interfere or I don't get involved on how we get vendors paid. We follow the process, and when that thing is done, a check will be printed out.
Okay, I mean, Chairman, that's the only concern that I just wanted to bring it up. But I mean, Mr. Guerrero, maybe if you guys can look into it because, I feel for these vendors. I mean, if there's like what the other colleagues mentioned over here, that they're dealing with, if not thousand millions, they're getting paid faster than these small vendors. And it really bothers me when they reach out to my office and asking, is there a way that they can be paid? And then I'm happy that we have this uh, discussion so I can share with you so you can look into it, please.
Would do, Congressman.
Okay, I yield for now. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rep. Itibus. Members for the second round. Okay, Rep. Castro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just kind of going back. I know this is the second round in regards to the that contract in regards to Royal International. Sir, I want to ask. I believe there was an item in that invoice that, where the shirts were part of the order. What exactly were those shirts utilized for? Or apparel, something like that. It was in one of the invoices that was specified.
Rep. Castro, I'm not aware of any T-shirt that we place an order on. It could be a Tyvek suit, maybe.
Could you elaborate what exactly is Tyvek?
Yeah, those are a specialized suit for our first responders.
It's like a hazmat suit, sort of.
Correct.
Well, if it was specified for that, how come it was?
I know some of them comes with a detachable sleeves that maybe that you're
Okay.
seeing on that contract, but
Because because when I was looking at that couple days prior to this hearing, that was a substantial amount that was ordered, that was placed on that invoice. So I just wanted to see what exactly was the purpose of that. I mean, I know Bix does uniforms. Matter of fact, for some they did uniforms in a time past for some of the schools here. But I wanted to see what exactly was the purpose of that. Was it like, say, interchangeable uniforms for, the first responders was working the disaster, so, at least there's a quick change of clothes, or whether it was just, I just wanted to clarify that, just so that way that's not a sort of a fluff purchase where it's for Estonian or whatnot. I just wanted to make sure that there was a justifiable purpose for ordering that amount of apparel.
Yes, it is, Congressman. I think you're referring to those suits that our hazmat folks wear.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Next question I have is in regards to certain purchases that were made in regards to the contract section. I noticed in some of the expenses that were provided, there's a $5,000 expense for the Surfrider Hotel. Could you elaborate on clarify in regards to that purchase or in that contract?
Is that the Surf Rider or the the restaurant?
It's the Surfrider Hotel in Chalancanoa.
Okay, so that contract is in relation to my finance chief. My finance chief came out from Rhoda, and at the time, she was staying at a hotel down in Garapan. Apparently, right after the pandemic, they had to close down. The only hotel that was available at the time was the Hyatt and Surf Rider.
Okay. I'm aware in times of I know in times of like this that we do have individuals that have to utilize hotels and whatnot because of in regards to lodging. Okay, and he did state the role of Ms. O'Cook as your finance chief. It's actually listed in some of the documents that we have as members of the committee. In regards to that, for her to further, in regards to allowing her to continue with her assistance in this, there's other expenses, right? Per diem, vehicle rental, that type of sort.
Yes.
All right. So total, I need to ask in regards to the lodging and the rental, how much is the total incurred cost for that expense in regards to this disaster?
Okay, so to add it up, I'll say $800 for a rental car.
Okay.
And a stipend of $87.50.
Per day.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm not a mathematician, but if you add that up, that's a significant amount. Aside from that, I know that as of this point, that establishment is still being used as lodging.
That's correct, sir.
Okay. Within the committee's within the committee's discussions and our 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 meetings amongst each other, we've noticed that there's also an expense that was incurred to the higher regency. That's about $120 some thousand expense. What's the purpose for that expense? Is there somebody else other than the individual that was mentioned that's utilizing the facilities for the purpose of this disaster?
Yes, Congressman, there's a team from Korea that has been working with the lab here on island at CHCC, and there are over at the Hyatt, and maybe if later on this afternoon, I know the GAR will be coming in, maybe he can answer or ask that question to us. Well, I'm not too familiar with that, but I know that they're over at the Hyatt.
So these are medical professionals.
Correct.
Okay, like so doctors or lab technicians.
What I understand is they are lab technicians. They work at the lab.
Okay. The tests that you've been utilizing within the community and for general testing amongst the first responders, those are from correct. Those are from Korea, right?
Yes.
Okay. So my last question in regards to this, sir, is in regards to the Marianas Resort. I remember, I think if I'm not mistaken, I actually was, or if I wasn't the only one, one of a few at the first hearing that we had with the GAR in regards to Marianas Resort. Why wasn't it utilized to begin with? Because I know that with the ACS and the Marianas Resort, they're on two different ends of the island. Now, of course, Marianas Resort's in Marpi. There's not a good the population count there is not substantial if you don't include like San Roque, Matuis, and those areas compared to the Canoa, where it's in the middle of a pretty busy area of the island. The GAR mentioned it was not suitable for a quarantine facility, and the government did not want to be in the business of running a hotel. Wasn't part of their will. In regards to that, has that situation changed? Have you or the task force mitigated situations regarding that location? And if it is, who did you contract out to overhaul the facility?
Okay. At this time, Congressman, there's work been done at the former Marianas Resort. We all know it has been 2-3 years ago when it was last used during Typhoon Sololor. It has a lot of issues such as water heaters, aircon units, and there is quite a number of vendors that are working at the site now trying to get it ready. I know we are working on bidders on trying to come in and manage the property. That's in the works, and we're hoping that we can open up this facility by August the 1st.
Okay. Good to know that. Good to know that date. That's actually Saturday. So, in regards to that, once it's ready and squared out, will it be the same process as say like how Canoa and PIC, where you put PUIs in PIC, you put the really severe cases in the ACS? Is that the setup you're gonna go with that?
Yes. What actually we're trying to do is to try and maximize Marianas Resort, and we'll use Canoa as if there's an overspill and PUIs. But a passenger arriving to Saipan will be directed down to Marianas Resort.
Okay. That's good to know because, you know, I mean, I understand that if you look at the architecture of both facilities, you know, you got several different units you can use there in regards to social distancing compared to the Kanoa where it's pretty much two connected buildings. I believe they share the same central, I mean, you know, so I'm just looking at, you know, the safety part of that, you know, the contact tracing and whatnot, if there's any, you know, depending on how the quarantine and the isolation protocols that you have at the ACSR. You mentioned that you're bidding and whatnot, as into who will staff that area once you get it up and running. Just the last question I have with that is, what's the source of funding for that part of the project?
That will be the Office of Grant Management.
Okay, so that's the state clearinghouse. So you're looking at utilizing federal funds to source the funding for staff.
Okay, so to get the facility ready, it's being worked with the Office of Grant Management. Once we open up the facility as a non-congregate shelter, that will be a cost that will be reimbursed by FEMA.
Okay. I know, Mr. Chairman, we have a lot of meetings that are hearings that are scheduled in regards to our committee's work, but the special assistant did indicate that we do have that facility almost up and running. So I'd like to suggest to the chair, if it's possible, and with the guidance of the special assistant, if we can take a look at the work that's been done so far in preparing that site for when it's put in activation. If there's no objection to that, Mr. Chairman.
No objection.
Okay. Okay. Yes,
Noted.
sir.
I'll be happy to schedule a tour to the facility if anyone wants to schedule this up.
Okay. The individuals that or the company that's been helping in retrofitting it, is it the same company that's been working on the alternate care facility, or is it a different contractor?
There are different contractors, and mostly these contractors are either air conditioning vendors or water heater. But I can go back and inquire those information. I'm not too sure that it's been handled by the Office of Grants Management.
Duly noted, sir. Okay, Mr. Chairman, I know I kind of I don't want to use up too much of my time, so if any further questions come about, I'll save for the next round if there is a yield.
Thank you, Rep. Castro. Rep. Lipan, you have the floor.
Thank you. Director, you alluded that the Korean medical personnel is staying at the Hyatt, correct?
I believe there are
Yes
the
or
lab.
no? Yeah,
Yes, they're the lab technicians.
And with your chief finance, she's in the Saipan Surf Rider Resort, yes or no?
Yes.
So, based on this letter that your EOC, Deputy Chief EOC Logistics Section signed off, you alluded that Hyatt is offering the room rate at $185.15, and Surf Rider is $161. Why, if I'm seeing this, there's a cost-saving measure that you decided to put her in Surf Rider. Why not put the medical staff in Surf Rider when it's cost-effective?
Rep. Lipan, I believe the decision was made because of the distance from the facility at CACC and the Hyatt.
Well, your office is up here. Why not put your chief financial officer at Hyatt? It's closer to coming up to your office, right?
I'm sorry, Lee, Lee, I thought you were
No,
referring
but
to the
you're,
Koreans.
you're alluding that this Korean medical staff is closer to CHCC.
Correct.
But for the chief CEO, finance, you put her down as serve writer, that's time consuming. She has to drive all the way from Chalancana all the way up to Capitol Hill. Isn't it more realistic to put her at Hyatt and it's easier for her to run up to your office?
Uh,
I'm kind of lost that you put her far away and your reasoning is medical staff, they're closer to Hyatt because of their specific specialized need that they need to be at Hyatt?
the the Hyatt, I believe, does not have a laundry facility that my finance chief section it would like to have a facility that can, to provide laundry service. I think that was the decision that we made for her to be at the surf rider.
Well, it's because the requests here, it just don't make sense that, you're basing it on pricing and it does not say that there's no laundry on the request and that so forth. And now you're saying this because there's no laundry at the Hyatt, but there's laundry at the serve rider. It just don't, it's not justifiable to me. But because the cost is still there, you're giving her a stipend of $80 per day plus car rental, and that's fuel consumption. And that fuel consumption is probably coming out of your office, correct?
Yes.
So my question is, when this PR was prepared, it was from a different person. Do you have counsel at Homeland Security?
Not an assigned counsel. I refer up to the AG's office.
So before you sign off on contracts, or do you have somebody review before signing off on contracts, or you sign it off and give it to the AG?
The AAG will review it before I sign it.
So Vivian is your finance officer.
She is the finance section chief for this response.
Is it normal practice for her to sign something when it pertains to her needs?
No, it's not, but I do acknowledge and I initiate my.
Well, I'm looking at the resource request here, and I don't know if this is your signature, because I see a request by name and position with has your name, and then on the finance, it's her name with somebody's signature. Is this your signature?
No, it's not.
So may I recommend that any further such action like this, it should be signed by whoever's the deputy or you yourself as the director, because this is not a proper process of doing, because it's showing that this is, to me, it's illegal. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm wondering why the AG will sign off on something like this and cannot catch this discrepancy.
Those 213 forms, I would sign that, or it could be the deputy.
Well, I'm looking at it and it does not have your signature on. Only the section chief approval number 10 here in this RR ICS 213, the sign off, and your logistics officer, the signs off, plus the finance. But USD EOC commander did not sign off. Is this the normal practice that you won't sign off?
No, we usually sign off on those documents.
Moving forward, I'm looking at two contracts from MedFarm director, and I'm kind of concerned in this contractual purchase that was done from MedFarm. One purchase requisition was for the electrical bed, monitors, X-ray, ultrasound, and so forth. This pro forma invoice from MedFarm is shipping and handling CIF. You understand the terminology of CIF? It's cost in freight.
Cost in freight.
I'm looking at the other purchase requisition, which is executed April 9. The first one was April 8. This one is for the ventilators. And it's showing this PR requisition that is 50,000 for shipping and handling. And I'm looking from MedFarm pro forma invoice, shipping and handling CIF, but we end up paying 50,000. Now, I looked at the Department of Finance, and when I looked at this emergency contract, did these two purchase requisition came in from the same flight?
A lot of the equipment could be on the same flight.
So why are we paying the 50,000 if the first purchase requisition was riding on this flight? It should not be included. And if this ventilator came in on this flight with the other equipment, so we're double paying the freight.
Rep Lee, what we're doing right now, we're going back to all these contracts, and we're trying to see
Well,
what
Director, because what concerns me is this MedFarm are being paid already. They're asking a 300,000 upfront payment, and when you pay something upfront payment, that's assuring that we're going to be getting this stuff timely. And when I looked at this from MedFarm, the contract was executed June 19, and you sign off April 10. That's 2 months, almost June, April, May, 2 months. It indicates effective date of April 13, but the MedFarm contractor signed it June 19. Can you explain why? When they got paid already from the cinema?
The contract with MedFarm was, I know they're not, we haven't completely pay off what we got.
So how much this is paid already?
And we are working with the Department of Finance too on trying to rectify the.
So Director, how much is paid of this 3 million, almost 3 million, 3.5? How much was paid already?
Was 50%.
See? So they got 50% of it. How do we treat our local vendors? Do we treat them the same?
Due to to the requests and the orders that we were trying to get from them, they require us some sort of payment before shipping anything.
Yeah, but this is Medfarm Saipan.
Yeah, but the
Is Medfarm Guam telling Medfarm Saipan that this is what we want?
no,
That
but the
you go through bank transfer to our bank in Guam? Because that's what we want?
that's the requirement for them.
But we're dealing with Medfarm Saipan. I don't understand why we have to deal with Medfarm Guam. What for have an outlet here and Medfarm Guam is making the decision?
Rep, I can't answer that question, but
And that's something that you should have questioned prior to signing this contract. I'm worried that you continue to sign contract because the AG says it's fine. Now that we're trying to find the answers, I'm not getting a clear definition of your answer because you're signing off for something that I'm worried. What I'm trying to allude, because you're the one that's under oath that you need to answer this. And you're gonna be held accountable for this, and I'm worried of you continuing to do this practice. I think what you need to do is revisit the approach. I do understand the urgency need, but some of these vendors, they don't care. They're just suppliers. All they care is they want their money. Trust me when I say that. No, especially PPEs and equipments, because of this COVID, they know that there's no ending story to this COVID fiasco. So they know already how to do business. The business in the business world is they want it, it's my price. They need to pay me half before I ship it out. That's all they care. That's all they care is that money. What vendor really cares about us, what we need here in this community? Because I do understand the urgency to get the alternate site started, because we don't know this pandemic. But the point of this is we need to make sure that before you sign off, every dotted line is consulted. The AG consults you. I don't understand why the AG would say we can't provide consultation, legal counsel to respective agency, but you just alluded that you don't have any Assistant Attorney General consulting you. This is something that the AG should put an Assistant Attorney General with your office so they can review this and guide you through, because at the end of the day, you're responsible for this because you sign off. You know, the AG can say, yes, I did. I reviewed it for legal sufficiency. That's all. But did he negotiate in good faith? I don't think so. What was provided to the AG is what he or she reviews. But you yourself are the one being faced with all these things. So again, EOC, please write to the AG, ask the governor. I said, Governor, I want an Assistant Attorney General present in my office to guide me forward with all this, because we're not done with this. This COVID is here to stay. It's not going anywhere until a vaccine is found. And you're going to continue signing off on contracts because you're the EOC, and you're tasked to make sure that everything is in line, everything is ready, that we should not be saying we cannot have things ready, and when this infection infects the community, it's going to be a daunting task on you yourself because you're going to be scrounging to find other resources instantaneously. So I highly recommend that you reach out to the governor and provide you counsel so your counsel can be reviewing this before you sign off and forward to the AG. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield for this time.
Thank you, Rep. Lee.
May I? Thank you, Rep. Lee. Thank you for those guidance. And but I don't have a daily on a day-to-day an assigned AG, but on this response, there is
They should provide you.
All right.
I highly recommend that the AG should provide you one because this is very important. I'm very disappointed that he's allowing you to sign off without a recommendation from an assistant attorney general. It's baseless for him to say out in the media that I'm capable to provide an assistant attorney general to all respective government agency. So if they cannot provide you, if you have funding, hire your own attorney for your office because it's important. It's important to have your own counsel representation because you don't want to end up being responsible to pay all this thing if the Sinamay government refuse because you're the one that initialized the PR. You're the first person that initialized every PR that comes in. So that's my recommendation to you.
Do you yield, Rep. Lee? Thank you. Mr. Floor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, if I may redirect you again back to the purchase requisition of Asia Pacific Hotels, DBA Canoa, and Inter-Pacific Resort, which is PIC. So the contract and the facility acquisition was based for Canoa of 224 rooms, and on the PIC was 308 hotel rooms. Have we reached the 100% house to house since we started, since we acquired these facilities? What was the maximum rooms use?
I would say 80% of the max.
80%, okay. And on the same token, these purchase requisitions are only good for April, May, and June. We are now in July. What source of funding is paying the continued acquisition of these facilities?
Rep. Sablan, I know the GAR will have a better answer for that, but I believe he is renegotiating the renewal of this NCS with FEMA.
Okay, is that the case also with PIC, or we have already terminated the contract with PIC? I know that you guys still see the need of using Canoa because you guys are renovating Marianas Resort. Is that fairly correct?
We have terminated the contract with PIC. And then moving forward, once Marianas Resort is ready, the Marianas Resort will be a primary quarantine site for every passenger coming in, and any overspill will be referred down to Canoa.
Okay, thank you for that response. So PIC is terminated already, and Canoa Resort is on the negotiation part for an extension. Do you happen to know? I know that you mentioned that the GAR is dealing with the negotiation, but do you happen to know how many more of an extension you guys foresee the need of these facilities?
I believe it's every month. It's a 30-day extension request that you submit.
Okay, so you guys are working on a month-to-month rollover contract at the moment with Canoa?
Yes.
Because as of June, This contract is only good for April, May, and June.
Yeah. So, can I refer that again to the GAR? So
To the GAR,
you have a better answer to that.
All right, thank you for your response. I yield for now, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rep. Mr. Floor. Um, Anyone? Okay. Mr. Guerrero, is it? I noticed in a couple of the contracts, the head of state actually signed contracts. Is that a normal procurement process?
Can you elaborate the head of state? Are you referring to the governor or?
Yes.
Well, on this emergency procurement contracts, it's the state coordinating officer, the governor's authorized representative, and the attorney general.
And not the head of state.
No.
Okay. Well, just for the record, it is in one of the contracts. I believe it's under MedFarm where the head of state actually signed, was part of signing in the contracts.
I guess on that particular contract, it was an agreement between the vendor in making sure that he gets paid for it, and one was to have the head of state signature block on their contract.
Is that a normal process?
No, it's not.
Because a lot of the other contracts, it's just pretty much the authorized representative that signs off, the AG. But I did note that there is a few that was signed, and that's where it becomes very dangerous because of all the conflict that gets involved. Normally, you have a process where a committee sits down and they go through this and vet it out, and then each, whether it's the AG and I believe yourself, the GAR, and then someone else. I believe in one of the contracts, Jose signed off on the governor's signature. Jose Marilam or something like that.
Mr. Chairman, can I see that contract?
Is that a technical error or?
Mr. Chairman, yes, I will admit this is a technical error. It's supposed to be the vendor's signature.
Okay. Yeah, but a lot of the contracts that you're holding, there is some that has no legal review, so that poses a question in regards to what Rep. Lipon has mentioned earlier. A lot of these contracts are not signed off, and then we don't know who did the legal review, and there's no name. It's just signature, so we can't authenticate it. And that's pretty much the main concern is we're trying to separate everyone from getting involved. There is a task force, and I believe the task force should be the ones to review and sign off of it, just like you've done in the other contracts. And that's pretty much my concern.
I agree with you, Mr. Chairman. In fact, I'm working with the AG in trying to go back and reevaluate all these contracts, and maybe we should add additional signatory.
Also, thank you, Mr. Guerrero. A lot of the contracts had a whiteout on it and was signed by the GAR. Is that, I mean, why were they whiteouts?
I believe that was an earlier contract, and it was again a technical error where they had the former GAR, Miss Virginia Villagomez, is stated on the contract or the PR.
So who signs off of, who's the GAR for Homeland Security? Who is assigned? Because there's like 3 known GARs right now, right? There's Miss Virginia, there's Mr. Angel, and Mr. Patrick.
Okay, so the GAR for I forgot what's the declaration number, but the GAR for Typhoon U2 is still Miss Virginia Villagomez. The GAR for this COVID response is Mr. Patrick Guerrero.
Okay, so why is Miss Virginia signing in a lot of the COVID ones?
In the very beginning of the response, she was the GAR, and then she got replaced by Mr. Patrick Guerrero. And those are maybe the wideouts that you guys been seeing on these contracts and purchase orders.
Okay. With that, is there anyone? We're trying to leave here by 12:30, so okay, you may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Following up on the chairman's questions regarding the MedFarm contract, Mr. Deleon Guerrero, you said that the vendor, MedFarm, required the governor's signature on that contract. Is that correct?
It was not a requirement, but he requested that we have the governor's name on this contract. I'm not sure why, but a request came in.
And who from MedFarm requested that?
I believe I know it wasn't Joanne, but it was a request from MedFarm.
But who from MedFarm? Do you have a name?
It could be the president. I'm not sure.
Who would know the answer to that?
The task force.
So was the governor involved in the negotiation with MedFarm?
I'm not sure. I could not say yes or no, but the vendor requested for the governor's signature block.
To ensure that the vendor would get paid?
Yes.
Did the governor have any communications with you, or did you have any communications with any representative of the governor regarding any contracts with MedFarm?
Can you repeat that question?
Did you have any communications with the governor about this contract or any of the contracts with MedFarm?
Yes, I do.
Could you describe that?
Actually, it was it was me myself that I reached out to everybody, and this includes the governor, because at the time I was running 150 miles and trying to get all this requests for PPEs and everything, and I seek the guidance of the task force, the governor, to help me out in, finding me a vendor.
Did the governor recommend that we reach out to MedFarm?
He didn't recommend, but he mentioned about MedFarm.
He did mention MedFarm.
Yeah, but no recommendation about going to MedFarm alone.
So the governor suggested reaching out to MedFarm, and that was it? Or were there other communications?
And that was it.
Did the governor suggest reaching out to International Royal?
I didn't talk to the governor regarding International Royal Bics. That was a conversation within the task force.
Thank you. Are you aware that a significant number of the contracts that were sole sourced for this COVID-19 response went to individuals or companies that donated to the governor's campaign?
I am not, ma'am.
So you are not aware that MedFarm was a contributor, International Royal was a contributor, Royal Yamaha, same owner, was a contributor,
I am not.
Eland was a
I am-
contributor,
I am not.
Tan Holdings was a
I am-
contributor? No, you were not
No.
aware. You mentioned that there is a 20% rejection rate by the Attorney General for some of these invoices, and that the reasoning is often because further justification is required. Is that correct?
Yes.
Does the Attorney General sometimes also reject invoices when quotes are obtained after the fact?
Please repeat the question.
Does the Attorney General reject invoices for items that were procured and then only after they were procured, quotes were obtained? Does he sometimes reject those invoices?
I don't recall on those kind of purchases.
But are you aware that sometimes purchases are made, procurements are completed, and then requests for quotes are directed to your staff to go out and get?
No, we don't do such practice, Rep. Sablad. If a service is provided prior to a payment, we just go ahead and do a contract and route it out to the AG's office for his approval. A lot of, I will not say a lot, but some of them needed the services immediately, and we can't get a payment out right away.
Okay. So services are needed right away, and so then you would sole source that, right?
Correct.
But in some cases, your staff have been directed to go out and get quotes even after the services were provided, after the equipment was installed, after the goods were delivered, and then they're told to go out and get some quotes. Are you aware of that, sir?
Those are the, I guess, part of what the AG's rejections of this contract. So we go back and and just follow or work with what the requirements from the AG.
And if the quotations show that the Commonwealth could have gotten a better price for this good or this service, does the AG reject those invoices for reimbursement?
He just doesn't sign on it. He will return it.
He will return it. So then what happens to that expense? Can we get reimbursed for that expense if the AG refuses to sign off on it and returns it?
What we'll do is go back and work on what the recommendation of the AG. But in terms of reimbursements, again, the GAR can really talk about that on what's allowable and what's not.
But sir, isn't it true? So if the AG refuses to sign off on an invoice, that we cannot submit that for reimbursement to FEMA. Is that correct?
I'll say it's not accurate because I know that we can work with the regular procurement process and submit for FEMA reimbursement.
So it would not become an expense of the state, of the Commonwealth, necessarily.
It is an expense from the state, and then we'll turn around and request for reimbursement from FEMA.
And you're saying the GAR could provide more insight on this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Going back to my questions about the meal contracts, are you aware of any complaints from other catering vendors?
Yes, I am.
Could you elaborate? Are there many complaints from meal vendors or just a few?
A few.
Okay.
And this is for a, we have vendors lined up and apparently a vendor called in. We told them that, we might turn around, come around, and on the next round, go back and request for a proposal or a quotation from that vendor. But we do have a vendor that had, submitted a quotation, but we didn't entertain it.
And who was that vendor?
Galaxy.
And why did you not entertain that?
At the time, like I said, Rep. Sablon, we got plans set up. We got about 5, 6 vendors lined up, and we got back to her or to this vendor, letting her know that we will come back around after. But apparently, it ended up, this meal thing ended up in, I'll say, early May, and we never had a chance to go back and have a quotation from that vendor.
You said the meal thing ended in early May. What do you mean by that?
We stopped feeding for first responders.
So, our understanding, Mr. Deleon Guerrero, is that it was in April when Homeland Security canceled the meal orders with this one vendor. And it wasn't just that you had obtained quotes, but that you had actually confirmed the order and that this vendor had gone on to order supplies and even went out and purchased a freezer, and then subsequently the order was canceled.
Rep. Sablon, that's not the case. We never had a binding contract with this vendor.
But there was a verbal confirmation from your office that she could go ahead and proceed.
I'm not too sure. I can't answer that question, but we just don't have any binding contract with this vendor.
Did you direct your staff to cancel the order that had been placed with Galaxy?
I never did direct a staff to cancel. What I direct was to get back to this vendor, and I believe this was all done by through phone, that we will be coming back to this vendor.
And who did you instruct among your staff?
Mr. Patrick Cepeda.
Patrick Cepeda. And did anyone instruct you to cancel any meal orders with this vendor?
Rep. Sablon, we never had an order with that vendor.
Right, but she had been informed that there was going to be an order. But what I'm asking you, sir, is did anybody instruct you to cancel any orders with Galaxy?
No.
Nobody.
Nobody.
And did you or anyone ever say that the decision to cancel these orders came from higher ups?
Can you repeat again?
I'm asking if you or anyone in your department said that the decision to cancel the orders with these vendors was coming from higher up.
No.
You did not say
No.
that. You're under oath, sir. Are you sure you did not say that?
I did not say that, ma'am. Or if I say, I didn't recall saying that.
Or say anything to that effect?
No, I didn't recall saying that.
And the reason that you're saying that this particular contract was canceled was because you said that Homeland Security might come back around, but then meals ended in early May. Is that correct?
Yeah, the meal, providing meals to the first responder ended early in May, or sometimes in May.
Are you aware, though, that apparently from the documents that have been submitted, contracts with OMG have continued through June?
Okay, so with that contract, I believe it was later on in this part of the response that we had the community-based testing. Um, it was the meals that was the order was primarily for the folks working up at the airport. They're working through their lunch hours, and also to add on to that, it was variety. There's variety of vendors that we went out and seek services, not only OMG.
But OMG has continuously had a contract from March all the way through June. Is that correct?
Okay, so what happened was we stopped the meals, and then when we opened up the CBT, which is the testing sites, that's when we came up and continued to provide lunches for folks working up at the airport. But it was in May that we stopped feeding first responders.
But for these meals that have continued, did anybody ever go back to Galaxy to ask them if they could provide meals?
I'm not aware of. Like I said.
Yes or no, sir? Did anybody ever go back, like what you had indicated to your staff, that maybe you'll go back and ask for a quotation again? Did anybody ever go back to ask?
Like I said, maybe I can reach back to the locks chief and see whether they went back and called this vendor up. But for myself, I didn't. I was not making that call for quotations.
So are you aware that Homeland Security and perhaps yourself could be held liable for the losses and damages incurred by a small vendor who relied on the promises of your department and went out and purchased and was canceled on, not just once and not just twice? Are you aware of that you could be subject to litigation?
All I'm aware of is we don't have any binding contract for this vendor. So that vendor going out, getting, preparing themselves to a possible contract is beyond my, I cannot just tell them what to do, but a binding contract would suffice if we will provide or allow that vendor to provide the service.
Are you aware, though, that verbal commitments and email confirmations do indicate a commitment from the government?
Yes.
So what I'm hearing, Mr. Chairman and colleagues, is that this FEMA-approved incident command system for procurement is being fast-tracked or bypassed for some, but not all contracts. And some of the biggest contracts that have bypassed this process have been awarded to political supporters, campaign contributors, family connections, what appears to be cabinet members with interests in businesses, favoring some businesses with political connections over others, but not just showing favoritism, also actively actually hurting small businesses in a time of crisis. This is extremely troubling. I'd like to shift gears real quick to inquire about overtime compensation, overtime and dual compensation. Mr. Special Assistant Guerrero, in April and June, you wrote to OPM requesting waivers for certain exempted employees, citing authority under the Governor's Executive Order 2020-04. There was a request in April 17 for 27 employees, a second request on June 9th for 20 employees, and a third request on June 10 for 6 employees from Tinian and Rhoda. Were there any other requests after that?
No.
And for the record, would you please state the purpose of these requests?
The request was made to the Office of Personnel Management to to get this exempt employees paid at a rate of 1.0.
And in your 6 years at Homeland Security, have you made such requests for waivers before?
Yes, ma'am.
In what circumstances?
Disasters such as Solar and YouTube.
You made the request to OPM.
Yes.
Did you consult with any legal counsel before requesting these waivers?
I did not.
Why not?
It was a request, and I don't believe a legal review is needed.
You did not believe a legal review was needed. Were you directed to make the request?
I did not got directed to do the request, but like I said, prior disasters, I did the same thing for exempt employees.
Now, the governor's executive order says that you can make these transfers of personnel in consultation with the governor. Did you consult with the governor to identify the individuals who were listed in your letter seeking waivers?
No.
You did not consult with the governor. So how were the individuals listed in the letter selected?
By their NOPA.
By their NOPAs, what do you mean?
It would state on their NOPA whether they're eligible covered employees or not.
No, but how did you choose the exempted ones who are not eligible for any overtime? How did you choose those people to request the waivers?
Through their NOPA, because it shows right there in their NOPA that they're not eligible for overtime compensation. But there are exempt employees that they cannot avail to overtime, but for a straight time at 1.0, that's how I came about on the names to be to be sent down to OPM for this request.
And was the intention that they would be reassigned to these new positions under COVID-19?
Yes, they were reassigned.
And so that they would get paid for their COVID-19 response work at what point, at 1.0?
Correct.
And did they receive separate paychecks for their COVID-19 response work?
A separate paycheck.
Separate paychecks, yes. So
on-
for their regular pay
on
and
top
also for
of
their
yeah, on top of
COVID-19 pay.
the regular pay, they did receive a check too for the hours worked on the response.
And were they receiving dual compensation for the same hours worked?
I would say it's not, because they were reassigned doing different duties. So on top of at the time when everybody was on admin leave, they were getting that admin hours plus hours that they perform.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Okay, thank you, Rep. Sablan. Before I recognize Rep. Probst, let me ask the members first. Do we want to wrap this up by 12:30? Do you have any additional questions to the two members? Rep. Lee? You good? You? Rep.
Mr.
LJ?
Chair, we don't have questions at this moment, but if we can maintain what's in the rule of 5 minutes, because obviously everybody's been going over 5 minutes. Thank you.
I understand. If a member goes over 5 minutes, then I have to yield to other members to go over 5 minutes. That's part of the rule. It's equalness. And I apologize for that. Okay, so with no questions from the members, I'll you to Rep. Probst, limit your question to yes and no, so we can be out here by 12:30. Rep. Velagomis, are you have any questions? Okay. Rep. Itabus? Okay. Rep. Probst, you may proceed.
Thank you, Chairman, and I apologize. I'll keep this in 5 minutes. I wanted to follow up with these questions started by Representative Tina Sablan on overtime. If if you wouldn't mind. So I just wanted to clarify. You were assigned a new title, is that correct? Under COVID-19, and you and other cabinet members, because there was a request that was put out on April 17 and June 9 that included cabinet members, including yourself, to have that waived, right? So that, because as you mentioned, you're not eligible for overtime, right? Your NOPA says, so you had to put a waiver in to request so that you guys could get double pay or whatever you want to call it, or 1.0. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And you did not seek legal counsel advice on this. You mentioned that earlier, that you believed a legal review was not needed. You mentioned that earlier.
Yes.
Is that correct? So you did not seek legal advice, nor did the governor apparently seek legal advice. And I say this because if you wouldn't mind, counsel, would you put that up on the... So what we're looking at, and I apologize, is there a way to pull it up a little bit more? This is referring to our actual laws, because we do have laws on overtime. This is Title I, Division 8, Section 8245, compensation of certain appointed officials. And it lists the following appointed positions within the Commonwealth government shall be paid an annual salaries, base annual salaries as follows. And it gives, for each department director, activity head, appointed officials, that they have this annual salary that is not to be exceeded, not to exceed. So based on my understanding, you were able to exceed it because you had a waiver. Is that correct?
Was it? Can you repeat the question? Because
Okay, this law, this is Commonwealth law, that says right here that you have an annual salary for these appointed positions, appointed officials. That includes yourself and others, that they are not to exceed an annual salary. And it mentions the salaries. The DCCA secretary is one, Commerce secretary, and several others, that it's not to exceed this salary. But if that's the case, you had this, like you basically were getting additional pay beyond this. Is that because you were having a new position? Is that my understanding?
that's because I was responding for a different, responding to this pandemic.
Correct. So you have a new title.
I was appointed the state coordinating officer.
Okay. So you have a new title. You have an additional title. You have two roles. Is that correct?
Yes, my day-to-day role.
Okay.
And,
The reason why I ask this is, Council, are you able to pull up section 1020.2354 under Title 10 of the Civil Service Commission? Let me read this to you, and I'm trying to keep within time because I need to set this has to be understood. This states here in this law, bar to dual compensation or dual employment. No employee shall receive compensation for two positions or two appointments in the personnel service. When an employee is engaged in government work other than in the employee's regular position, such employee shall be, 1, placed in leave without pay from the regular position, 2, continue the government salary and reject the salary for the second position, whichever is to the employee's personal advantage. So basically what this law states is that you would have to take leave without pay from the regular position. My question is, did you and other cabinet members take leave without pay?
no, I did not.
Okay, in that regard, so you did receive dual compensation. You were paid for one government job and another government job. Two different jobs, two different responsibilities. How is that possible? How are you able to work two different jobs and get paid for two different jobs when you're one person?
Rep, props. I made the request. Request was approved.
So you're aware now that there is a salary cap, correct? As we showed you earlier, that you're not to exceed your salary. Could you please, just for the record, describe your additional duties that justify you to receive two paychecks?
Rep Props, can I get you my category before?
Well, could you just give me a few additional so could you give me some of your additional responsibilities that justify this?
One, for sure, is responding to a health pandemic. This is, like I said earlier, this is a very, very different response. I myself was afraid of COVID, and this to include a lot of staff at the office. When we got hit with this, some of the staff would not, or they were not coming to work because they were afraid. I myself, I have a family that I go to. I was denied walking into the house because of this, and really, whether I got paid for additional hours, like I said, I got a request down to OPM. It got approved.
Okay.
I don't know really how to respond
and I
to.
appreciate that, and I appreciate the sacrifices that every man and woman made in the front line. But are you aware that some frontline workers did not receive any compensation whatsoever on overtime or double pay or anything whatsoever, such as quarantine employees who were stationed at Kanoa and PIC? This is a huge concern, and we are aware of that. Are you aware of this?
No, what I'm aware of is these people down at both quarantine sites are getting their COVID pay.
Some of them did not, sir, and that was a concern that was brought to us. So we have looked into that, and we continue to want to know why they didn't receive any such compensation. But I do want to say this before I wrap up, and I apologize, that after you two, there was a lot of money that was paid for the same thing, overtime or double pay or whatever you would wish to call it. As we found out, it was not reimbursable by FEMA because it did not follow laws and practices of the Commonwealth. So therefore, FEMA had stated that they cannot reimburse for it. And we know that. This continues. Although it is a pandemic and something different, we were also told by the governor that no one was receiving any such pay. As it turned out, we did find that out. And last but not least, because we're very limited on time, what did concern me was that the DPS Commissioner Robert Guerrero doesn't appear on any of your waiver requests as far as the records that we were given. And yet, there's a COVID-19 job description for him, and he has also been compensated COVID-19 pay. How did this happen?
Congressman Props, we had DPS, DFEMS. They had their staff. They're working directly with FEMA. They're not going through the local PA office here. So they go directly to FEMA.
Okay. Before I yield, Mr. Chairman, I just want you to be aware that these payments are prohibited by Commonwealth law. And even with the government, with a waiver, based on our understanding that any such waiver does not trump law. And if we want to do that, we have to change it. That's part of our Constitution. So there will be questions about that. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Rep. Props. Any other members? We just hit the 12:30 mark. If there's no further question, what in regards? Well, 1 minute, like 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Deleon Guerrero, were any resources from Homeland Security diverted to support the governor's trip to the Northern Islands?
Rep. Sablon, can we defer that question to maybe a different hearing? I'm not prepared to.
No, sir. This is actually relevant to this hearing. This is an oversight hearing on COVID-19
But,
and federal assistance funds, and Homeland Security resources were used to support this trip.
It is sanctioned government, I guess, travel. My intention was to support the governor for the request that he asking the office for.
So the governor asked you to support this trip with Homeland Security resources.
Yes.
What were those resources?
Few tanks or few containers and generator.
A generator?
Correct.
How many generators?
Portable generator. 2 units.
2 units. Did you supply the fuel for those generators?
No, ma'am.
And what other supplies?
That's about it.
How about personnel?
No.
Did you have any of your staff running logistics, picking up supplies, delivering supplies, using the Homeland Security truck to deliver these supplies?
Yes, the generators.
And what about the other supplies, though? There were store runs to Ace Hardware, store runs to Superstore.
I'm not aware of, ma'am.
You're not aware of that? Who was the staff that was directed to deliver the generators?
Roland
Roland who?
Cruz.
And as far as you know, he only delivered that for this trip.
Yes.
Did you direct Mr. Cruz to deliver those resources?
Yes.
And was it the governor who specifically asked for the generators?
Yes.
Did the governor ask for anything else?
No.
And what did the governor's trip to the Northern Islands have to do with Homeland Security or emergency management?
Well, I guess for the governor's safety, he reached out to see if we can provide him portable generators.
For the governor's safety?
Correct.
Is that what he said
No.
in his justification to you?
No.
Is that how you justified it?
Correct, yes.
Is that documented anywhere?
Yes.
Where?
There's a log sheet that we log it up.
And that includes the justification?
Yes.
Sir, are these generators federally funded?
Some. If I'm not too sure, but don't quote me on this. I can go back and verify that.
The 2 generators that were used, you're not sure if they're federally funded?
Correct.
What did the governor's trip to the Northern Islands have to do with COVID-19 response?
What do the governor has?
What did the trip to the Northern Islands have to do with the Commonwealth's COVID-19 response?
I am not sure, but we don't have any case up there.
Did it have anything to do with the COVID-19 response?
I don't think so.
What other agencies or officials did you work with to support the governor's trip to the Northern Islands?
The request came from the governor, so I didn't have to work with any other departments.
For my final question, Council, could you please pull up the duties and responsibilities of Homeland Security? So, Mr. Deleon Guerrero, this is from the enabling statute for Homeland Security, spelling out your duties and responsibilities. You've seen this before. You were referencing it earlier, correct? Is there anything in your mandate for Homeland Security and Emergency Management that would indicate that a promotional trip to the Northern Islands by the governor is an appropriate use of your resources?
It's not clearly state, but as a head of state, I believe I have that duty to provide him his request.
Because he's your boss.
I report to the governor.
But you would agree that there was no chemical, biological, explosive, or nuclear, or pandemic, or other emergency or disaster that required the use of Homeland Security resources for this trip?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Rep. Sablon. Any other questions, concerns? Okay. So thank you, Mr. Guerrero, for attending the special committee's oversight. This committee will stand in recess, and should the committee decides to call you back, we will let you know 3 days prior. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members, thank you.
Chair, if we can ask the Sergeant Arms that we just leave our staff here for this afternoon's proceedings.
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Guerrero.